Hello, everyone. Today we are going to talk about the moon in Cancer in the natal chart, what this means if you have this placement, and how to navigate the turbulent and sometimes very movable waters of this sacred archetype of Cancer. So the first thing to reflect on is, what does the moon represent? Because the moon is very different than the sun. So if you have the sun in Cancer, it's going to be a different energy than if you have the moon in Cancer. So the moon is the feminine energy, right? The sun is the masculine energy and the moon is the feminine energy. It's the opposites. They're two polar opposites, and they reflect the dual nature within our being. So the moon is receptive. It is emotional. It is reflective. It is introspective. It represents our past. It represents where we come from and the emotional imprints that we're holding in our body. It shows what we're sensitive to, our level of intuition, and also the subconscious programming that's going on. So like the instinctive reactionary response of the body and of the mind when certain things in the environment occur to it. So this is all about where we find safety, where we find comfort, and how we find happiness. Actually, it's not when we go for what we want to create something with the sun. It's not like our purpose for being here. It's how we can feel like stable and at peace in our body in this world, right? It's about appreciating what we already have instead of moving towards something and taking action because we don't have it. So the sign of Cancer is a cardinal water sign. So water represents the emotional well-being of the person, and cardinal means that it is meant to initiate. It is meant to start things. It's an action-oriented energy. So when these two energies combine together, you get the mother archetype. One thing just to point out right from the beginning is that the moon is quite strong in Cancer. Alkai back there. The moon is quite strong in Cancer because the moon is the ruler of Cancer. And so while this can be positive in many aspects, it gives the native a strong emotional intelligence and a capacity to care for oneself and for other people. It can also create some dramas in the life as well. It depends on the aspects of the moon, which we'll get into a little bit later, so stay tuned. We're just going to focus on more of the basic things right now. So with the moon in Cancer, as I mentioned before, it is the mother archetype. They are very caring and they want to nurture and nourish others. Mothers play a very important role in the forward progression of our species. Oftentimes we like to honor like the people out there that are fighting to create something or that are making a difference in the world in a way of like in a visible way, right? Through their job, through their career, or through, overcoming certain obstacles in the outside world. So oftentimes we tend to value people that are successful businessmen or women or who have made an impact, a visible impact. Cancer is more of a private sign, especially when the moon is in Cancer. These people are going to be much more private. They're going to have a need for privacy and just to be more at home. And so they are very much valued in our world because they are the mothers of the world. They are the caring nature that is sensitive to these vulnerable children, the vulnerable young. They're the youngest of the most vulnerable of beings that exist. And it's necessary that there is an archetype in existence that has a heart for them, right? If you imagine, like, if you had like some warrior or some fire sign with all this like energy holding a baby, it's cute, but it doesn't necessarily, it's not really a match. So Cancer is the archetype that wants to care for others, and they are intuitive to what people need. They have that sensitivity there. In Vedic astrology, the sign of Cancer has the sattvic quality, and sattvic means life-giving or harmonious. So when we think about the archetype of the mother, the most nourishing part of the mother, of course, is the heart. And for the infants that it's raising, it is the breasts. It is this nourishing, life-giving, like, source of nutrition that the mother naturally produces to just give freely to its child. And so they have a very intuitive connection to those who are smaller, that are in need of care. Oftentimes, these people will have a strong heart for animals, and they like to root for the underdog. They have a lot of compassion in their hearts. And there's just this sensitivity and this emotional intelligence to know what the child or the person that they're caring for needs. So these people can make great caretakers, great nurses, and great parents, great in the family life. They can be great at, like, even nourishing their partner and caring for the needs of the home, because they have a strong memory. The moon represents our level of memory, and they're able to just remember, and it like kind of comes to them in an imprint of, oh yeah, I need to do this for that person, or oh, I bet this person would really like it when I can care for them in this way. So they are here to care in every way, which is, giving sustenance, giving attention, and also protecting. Cancer is the sign of the protector. And when the moon is there, it can be very protective over others, but it can also be very protective of itself. When you think of the archetype of the crab, it's a hard shell and then it's soft inside, and it needs that hard shell for protection because it really is very sensitive to the emotional imprints that are around it. So these people have quite a broad emotional spectrum. They can feel the highest highs and the lowest lows. Cancer is the most emotional sign in the zodiac. When we think about the element water, and we think about movable water, cardinal water, we think of like a river, like a rushing river. And so they just have a lot of imprints that can come through them and that can move through them. And it's important that they're able to process that energy as well. This archetype suits very well doing some kind of emotional work throughout their life. 9 times out of 10, this is going to be something that I recommend for those with Cancer moons, especially those with difficult aspects. Any moon in a water sign, but especially the ones in Cancer, can benefit greatly from some kind of emotional healing, trauma healing, working with their energy to understand what's going on with them better. Because unlike moons, say, in an air sign or an earth sign, their emotions are very up and down. They're very volatile. They're not stable. And it's hard for them to be objective sometimes because they do feel things so deeply. So there is a moodiness factor there. One day they can be super high and super happy and feeling sassy, and the next day they can be, crying over dog food commercials. And this is because they're just open. They're open and they feel deeply. And this is a beautiful quality, being open and being vulnerable, because it gives them the intelligence to be able to navigate the world of caring for another person. But then at the same time, they need to put up boundaries. They need to put up protection for themselves, because they can feel so assaulted by this cold, cruel world, Sometimes they can even put up too much boundaries and block away any kind of difficult outside world because just the imprints are too extreme. And this is where you get more of the distorted side of Cancer, where they just want to hide away in their homes, especially the Cancer moon. They just want to hide away in their homes and be private and let go of the outside world. Or they can become super jaded because they want to give and they want to help others, right? It's a cardinal water sign. So they're taking action, they're initiating based on what they feel inside. And so they want to give, and not always that is reciprocated towards them, right? And so they can feel unappreciated, and situations that can really set them off for any kind of imbalances in the family life, imbalances with their children. Say if their children are hanging out with the wrong crowd, or there's some kind of destabilizing situation with the home, or money problems or difficulty in their relationships, this can really set them off. And then, of course, not to mention all of the difficult traumas and abuse situations that are also available experiences to us on this planet, unfortunately. And so they can really like get stuck in that. So it's important that they're able to work with someone and to learn more about their emotional world. The cool thing about Cancer, though, is that they don't necessarily, they can hold on to their emotions, and they can become like attached to things and attached to people, the people that they care about. And they can maybe feel a little bit useless or a little bit not important when these people don't need them anymore. So that's something to be aware of as well. But with the movable signs, with the cardinal signs, it's movable in Vedic. So, but I'm a Western astrologer that blends Vedic and Western. So I get the terms mixed up a little bit. So let's just stick with the Western terms now, because that's what we're talking about. So with the cardinal signs, the good thing about this is that they are meant to move, right? It's meant to flow through them. More with the fixed signs, it's harder for them to let go of things and to heal, because they just naturally want to hold on to things. They want to sustain. But with the movable things, especially with the moon in Cancer, they're able to let go of the emotions. Likely their system is able to let go of their emotions in a better way in general than most of the other signs, because they naturally have an emotional intelligence where because they are so sensitive, life wouldn't just give them the sensitivity without the intelligence or the capacity for them to actually work through this and to heal this. So this is a beautiful quality about Cancer, because if they are carrying emotional trauma, they are carrying difficulties, and let's be honest, we all are, even if we haven't experienced some kind of difficult abuse situation in our childhood, we all carry issues that we're here to work through, right? The moon is the past. So the moon shows our past and the emotional imprints that we're carrying with us into this life. And if we didn't have a moon, there would be no reason to come here. There would be no conditioning that we would be holding, because we would have basically worked through it all. So even those with a really positive moon, oftentimes there are little things that are hidden, little stuck traumas, little ego attachments that we need to work through here. So the emotions are meant to be let go of. The emotions are meant to be worked through. And this is something that can be done more easily with Cancer. And they will likely have an interest in this as well. They will likely have just an intelligence here, because they feel things so deeply. They're aware of their emotional landscape. And like any Cancer moon that I've spoke to or that I've consulted with before, you just bring it up. Okay, you're quite sensitive, aren't you? And immediately they know what you're talking about, because they can feel things 5 times deeper than most people. And that's the highs and the lows, right? So, and this sensitivity is what's needed for them to actually give the proper care to their offspring and to be good mothers. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword here, where they have this intuitive capacity and this caring heart, but then if things aren't checked, it can kind of turn around and bite them as well. So you want to look at the aspects that are being made to the moon, particularly the hard aspects, the squares, the oppositions, and possibly the conjunctions, especially if it's with more of a challenging planet like Mars, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, or the nodes. If those planets are making a conjunction or a hard aspect to the moon, then this will show the types of emotional difficulties that this person is working through. If you have the moon without any difficult aspects in Cancer, then likely your emotions will still fluctuate, but you won't be holding as much emotional baggage in you from past lives that you're going to need to work through. So the planet aspecting the moon it will show the flavor of the emotional issue that you need to work through. And very likely, if you have the moon in Cancer, you will be quite aware of what this is. So say if it's Mars squaring your moon, there will be issues of anger, very likely. There will be issues of getting frustrated or getting irritated or getting kind of in your head when someone bothers you. Also, it can show more of an energy of attachment, because anger is very much related to we're trying to make something work. We want something to be a certain way and it's not going our way. And so that creates anger within us. So it's a good opportunity to look at the types of attachments that you're holding as well. And the cat is just going crazy right now. She can feel the moon it's actually a full moon or a new moon in Cancer right now as I'm recording this. So the emotional vibes are high today. Or if the moon is connected to Neptune, say in a conjunction, well, then this is going to be definitely more of an intuitive moon, even more sensitive than just with the moon in Cancer. But it could show issues with abandonment, situations with wanting to escape the world, and just a lot of confusion, perhaps around the emotional landscape and how to function. So, and then I can just give one more example. Say if the moon is in a difficult aspect, like a square opposition with Saturn, and the moon's in Cancer, well, this can give someone depression. This can give someone blocks or fear around accessing their emotions, around wanting to tap into their emotions. And Saturn is an energy that kind of freezes, it delays things. So it can make it harder for the person to be able to feel happy. It can make it harder for the person to feel joy in life. And it's something that they have to work at. They have to really put dedicated effort towards. So if you have the moon in Cancer or you have the moon in any water sign and it's being affected by Saturn, then just know that this is an area of your life that you're going to have to work at, probably more than most people, in order to feel that sense of happiness. There's definitely some healing needed. And in order to kind of discover more of that, I offer readings, or you can work with a psychologist as well. But this is always recommended when the moon is influencing our area of happiness and emotional well-being, which is the moon. The moon in Cancer is very understanding. They're very empathetic. They kind of have a sixth sense about things, like a sixth sense in the way, like I mentioned before, with the intuitive capabilities. But they also can be a little bit psychic as well, especially if the moon is like connected with Neptune or with Jupiter, or it's in a water house, like the 4th, 8th, or 12th house, or the 1st house, or even the 5th house. The house placement will show the area of life that the moon in Cancer is intuitive in. And where it just kind of naturally knows how to connect with people. Although this can be more of a private energy, they do love to be around family. They're like the friend that people will call often. The sun in Cancer people are like this too. But the moon just has this natural innate understanding, especially if you're born at night. They're like the friend that you can call when you broke up with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, or when things aren't going your way, and they can be that person that you can call and that you can feel safe crying to, and they'll be able to give you good advice, or just to be able to hold space and to listen to you and to make you feel okay. They have this more nurturing quality. Whereas say if you went to someone with the moon that isn't as in a soft of a sign, they may not naturally know what to do. Right? The moon is very intelligent in Cancer because, like I said, Cancer is the ruler of the moon. And the moon also shows our emotional needs. So we look to what our emotional needs are based on the sign. And so things like family, things like close relationships, things like a positive, balanced domestic life, these are things that are represented by Cancer. And so the beautiful thing about this is that when we look at the emotional needs of someone, well, these are actually really positive emotional needs to have. Say if we have the moon in a placement that isn't as positive, say like Capricorn, where it's more about work and achievement and structure and organization, well, then this is something that the person will need for emotional balance, which isn't necessarily like, it can work for them, and every placement is sacred and has its own lesson to learn. But at the end of the day, what really is going to fill our hearts, and really what the best thing to look for that can offer the most amount of emotional balance and nurturance, is the family, is the home life. So it's kind of like these people are looking in the right place for that emotional warmth, that emotional support, and that kind of feeling of happiness. Whereas if it was looking in the opposite sign of Capricorn, which is where the moon is in its fall or detriment. I always get those two mixed up. um, then it might not be looking in the right place. And it can be even harder for these people if the moon's in Capricorn to feel positive. So the person's home life, if they have the moon in Cancer, well, they're going to want their home to be very comfortable, right? Because they always process emotions. They like to process emotions in private. So they're going to want to have a space, whether they live by themselves or they live with their family or a roommate or a partner or whatever. They're going to want to have a place where they can feel safe, where they can feel cozy at home. And they're going to put a lot of effort, very likely, into making their home environment comfortable and making it a place that they want to be in. Oftentimes, moon in Cancer will spend a lot of time at home reflecting and just recharging. For the most part, I would say, all other things being equal, this is more of an introverted sign. And especially if it's a night chart, and especially if the sun is in a feminine sign as well. This is going to be more of an introverted person that needs time to recharge away from the world in order to kind of get their batteries back. And so they're going to want to make their house very comfortable. So in a Cancer moon's house, they're going to have like a big comfy couch, probably. They're going to have an ottoman where they can put their feet up. They're going to want anything to make it inviting, anything to make the environment like cooling and gentle and soft, right? So lots of big pillows, pictures of their family, little keepsakes or trinkets, or even family heirlooms or antiques that have been passed down throughout their lineage. They're really going to value those things. They're going to hold on to those things. Things like, their great grandmother's china or their great grandma's silverware. Silver is also represented by the moon. So having silver, for these people, wearing silver on their bodies can be very good. They might have artwork of their children or of their grandchildren or their kids' children just around the things around their house. And they're going to want to hold on to things. It can be a little bit of a hoarder energy, not as much as like Taurus, but they are quite nostalgic and they can be attached to things that give them emotional safety and security, right? These people are very nostalgic. They may, have wonderful memories about the good old days and have ideas about wanting to go back there, and attachments to the past, perhaps attachments to old family members that may have moved on from this world. They really value their family. They really value anything that helps them to feel safe and comforted. These are going to be the kinds of people that will be, they'll want to have friends and family members over. They're going to want to connect with them. They're going to want to take care of them. They might be in the kitchen cleaning and cooking, when actually that's a little bit more of Cancer sun, I would think. That archetype of the mother where they're in the kitchen cleaning and cooking and doing all the things, and then everyone in the family is in the living room enjoying themselves and they're not really enjoying themselves. That's a bit more Cancer sun. I think Cancer moon, they're going to want to nourish it, but they're going to want to actually really find that value through connection. They're going to want to keep the peace as well. If any kind of family arguments or flare-ups with their friends happen, that can really destabilize our sensitive Cancer moons. Any kind of trauma, any kind of difficult situation, they feel it so much deeper than other people because they are so open and susceptible to the energies around them. These people don't necessarily like to show how they're feeling either, although will probably be quite hard for them to not show how they're feeling. Even if the moon is in like more of a hidden house, like the 12th house or the 8th house, it's still going to be quite hard for them to not show how they're feeling, especially if it's in like the 1st house or the 10th house. They kind of wear their heart on their sleeve, and there's really no hiding how they're feeling. It just kind of comes out. And especially if they have challenging planets that are influencing or aspecting their moon, they can be feisty too. Like, I know I've been talking a lot about the caring, nurturing, sensitive nature, which is like the sweet side of Cancer that we all love and appreciate, this mother archetype. But it can be like Kali Ma as well. You know, it can be fierce, it can be protective, and it may be hard for them sometimes to regulate their emotions because it does fluctuate and they do have a strong emotional spectrum. So if your moon is in Cancer, just know that if you have all this, so with this emotional volatility that Cancers feel, it can come out the other way too. And oftentimes what's very common is because they feel things so deeply and they internalize it, they want to suppress it and they want to push it down. This is the worst thing that they can do because it's just going to explode eventually, because they are so they are here to feel, right? Cancer is the sign of emotion. It's the most emotional sign that there is. It's the rushing river, right? And it's meant to flow through us. It's meant to be felt, and then it's meant to be let go of. And this is how a Cancer moon can really succeed in the world and succeed in their emotional well-being, is learning how to process their own emotions. So this is really important because this is going to be an area of their life that will not find peace, that will not find security until they actually learn this valuable skill. Cancer, like I said, is the realm of emotion. And so this is an area that is emphasized in their life. This is an area that needs to be prioritized in their lives. It needs to be given, so much importance. And when I say importance, I mean learning how to feel, how to recognize a feeling, how to feel it, and how to eventually let it go. But really, it's about learning how to feel it, okay? Because when life comes at us with difficult experiences that trigger us and make us feel a certain way, if we just hold on to it or we just distract ourselves, it stays in there, right? It stays in there. And then after so much, it's going to come out in other ways too, right? It can come out, for instance, Cancers can be the sign of overeating or turning to drugs or alcohol because of the emotional imbalances that they have. So if they're not able to properly process their emotions, it gets stuck in there and it's going to come out in other ways, whether that's emotional outbursts, whether that's some form of addiction, whether that's depression, whether that's reclusion and hiding away, whether that's a gambling addiction. Overeating is another really big one, especially when they feel unappreciated and they're not feeling satisfied by life. They're going to go to simple things like ice cream or burgers to get that dopamine hit because they're going to be feeling more shitty inside. So learning how to feel, and this is why I've been saying at the beginning, it's important that they work with some kind of counselor or some kind of therapist or coach that can walk them through how to properly process an emotion, that can bring up a feeling in them, that can show them how to manage their feelings, and then feel it without judgment. Recognize that we're not actually choosing to have this feeling. It's not our fault that we're having this feeling. We're just receiving it, right? The moon is the receptive energy that just takes things in. The sun is what puts things out, right? So we can be a little bit more to blame about the issues with our sun. But with the moon, it's more about what we just can't help but receive. It's like a mirror. You don't judge the mirror for what it reflects, right? It's just being a mirror. Same with the moon. The moon is just this open feminine container that is absorbing the imprints around us and then making subconscious decisions and reacting on it impulsively. So creating a space between the experience and then the trigger and then the response to that trigger, like there's 3 stages, is going to be really helpful for those people to find that happiness, really, because the moon ultimately represents happiness, right? The sun is our goals and how we move towards the world and to create what we want. But the moon is the sense of the emotional fulfillment that we get from our lives. And so both of these things need to be imbalanced in order to live a beautiful and successful life. So I would just really encourage all you Cancer moons out there to, update your emotional intelligence. And this is something that once you learn how to do, it's going to be a lot easier for you because the moon in Cancer is strong. It's volatile. It can fluctuate a lot. It's intuitive. It's sensitive. It's impressionable, but it's also very sweet and caring and kind. And it knows, and then once it's purified, and the emotions are able to run through it, it can really be able to show up in a wonderful, nurturing way where it actually feels it feels empowering and it feels like joyful to give to others. It feels like it fills them up inside. It makes them feel happy when they're able to nourish others. And in return, they're going to be receiving that same thing. So you want to look at where the moon is placed in the chart. Say if it's in, and this will show, it will naturally give strength to this house because the ruler of Cancer, which is the moon, is going to be in its own sign. So this house will naturally be strong, but it will naturally also experience a number of fluctuations and more ups and downs. And likely these fluctuations will not be appreciated by this person because they want like some kind of stability and security, but they're probably not going to be getting it, especially earlier in their life, because the water is not meant to be stable, right? Earth is meant to be stable. And this is why the moon is exalted in the earth sign of Taurus, which is very fixed. It does well in the sign of Taurus. It does well in the sign of Cancer too, but there is a little bit more drama that can come with it. So these fluctuations, so say if it's in the second house, for instance, there can be more fluctuations with the money, with the access to resources that it has. There could be some issues with the self-worth, more sensitivity around family dynamics. They may want to hold on to things more because the second house is what we keep. It's like the material possessions that we can be attached to. Say if the moon is in the 11th house, these people can, have very empathetic and kind and sensitive friend group and networking group. Maybe they can do well working with systems and understand the emotional system. They can maybe make really great psychologists and be able to communicate about certain psychological issues. They can become counselors. If the moon in Cancer is really in any of the houses that represent our career, I see the 11th as being representative of the career, especially if there's a connection with the 10th or the 6th house. So yeah, 2nd, 6th, or 10th house, or if it's on the midheaven, these people could be counselors, but there will be fluctuations in their work. There will be fluctuations in their output. And the level of energy they're really meant to be giving it. Sometimes they're not going to be feeling like doing it. And it's important to honor that. It's important to honor the cycles of the moon and where the moon is placed, right? The sun is the same in the sky, right? The daytime changes, amount of daytime, but the sun is always looks the same in the sky, right? The moon never looks the same. Every night it's different. And that is like our emotional landscape as well. So it's important to honor that. And it is important to be kind to ourselves. And if our moon's in Cancer, just to give ourselves a little bit more self-care and to try to find the joy in doing that in others as well. So thank you so much for watching. My website's down below. I'm available for consultations throughout the week and I hope to see you back soon. Thanks.